Hey book lovers, Kaylee here and welcome back to the Enchanted Library. And can someone please tell me where the heck June went? I feel like it just started and now it's already July. Like that's just, it boggles my mind. But I guess because it's the end of the month, that means it's time for another wrap up. And I have 7 books, I believe, that I read this month. So I guess let's get into this. June is also Pride Month, so I thought that I would start out the month reading an LGBTQ book, and that was Simon vs. the Homo Sapiens Agenda by Becky Albertalli. I did end up giving this a 4 out of 5 stars. I was so happy reading this book. I'll say that YA contemporary set in high school is really not my ideal genre, but I still really enjoyed this book. I was smiles most of the time reading it, and there was a certain scene that happens, because I don't want to give spoilers, even though I feel like everybody and their grandmother have read this book already. But yeah, during the carnival scene, fireworks started outside of my window for no apparent reason, and by the time I finished reading that scene, the fireworks were done. This book brought fireworks to the real world, and it just made me even more happy, and I just really loved the voices in here. I will say, I don't want to get any hate for this, but I wasn't as enthralled with Leah's character as I think everybody else in the world seems to have been. I don't think she got enough time in the book. I don't think that her character really developed enough, and you just didn't get enough of her to actually, or at least for me, to have a connection with her. I was much more enthralled with Abby and Simon and Blue. Those were my main 3 that I was super excited about. So if Abby ever gets her own book, I'm going to be so on board with that. But Simon vs. the Homo Sapiens Agenda, for everything that it did and for all of the hype that it's given and all of the awareness that it's provided, I absolutely adored this book. And the next book that I read in June is actually one that I've been waiting on for a while, and I was really hoping to have gotten an arc of it, but I had to wait for it to come out and be released like everybody else. So I was so happy to have picked up and read Onyx and Ivory by Mindee Arnett. I am not new to Mindee Arnett's writing. I have read her previous sci-fi series, the Avalon series, and I did enjoy it, but I will say I think I prefer her fantasy more. Like, this was just non-stop action. I absolutely loved it. The 2 main characters, Corwin and Kate, that are in this, I could not get enough of. I just want more of them. Unfortunately, next year she's releasing the 2nd book in the series and rounding out their story, so I think it's just going to be a duology. But I don't know, you never know. I gush about this book. I did a book talk on it as well, so I'll leave a link to that above my head and in the description down below, talking about my full thoughts on the book. But I'm just gonna say, read this book if you love fantasy. It's got such a great magic system. It actually brings up a few points that are even prevalent in today's society, which I really appreciated. I did end up giving it also a 4 out of 5 stars. I'm not quite sure what took it. No, wait, I do know what took it down for me. The big bad in this was awesome. I just wanted more from a couple of the other side characters. So, I mean, again, I get into that more in my book talk, but if you want a wild ride of a story that is just action-packed, non-stop, bursting to the seams with just plot after plot, and it doesn't stop, it doesn't slow down, and I just absolutely loved it. So, pick this up. It's a YA fantasy, but it was absolutely wonderful. The next book I gave a 3 to a 3.5 star because it was a very enjoyable read. There were just a couple of things that sort of fell flat a little bit for me, but I would still recommend it, and that is My Oxford Year by Julia Whelan. Now, I'm just going to say before I get into the book itself, this version has a little essay at the back by Julia, and she talks about how she sort of became wanting to write this and how a few of the different subplots happened because of things that had happened to her personally, and it actually made me enjoy this book even more after the fact. So it might really be a 3.75, but I mean, that's sort of picking hairs. But I did enjoy this. I will say there's some stuff that happens in here that's kind of going to throw you for a loop. It did say that there is the potential for this to become a movie, so partway through reading it, I was very intrigued as to who they were thinking of playing the characters and when it might be coming out. So I did some research, and unfortunately spoiled myself big time for something that happens in this. So if I hadn't spoiled myself, I think I would have been caught way off guard by something that happened, so I'm not really going to touch on that. There's an American named Ella. She is all about politics, but she had the opportunity to do a year abroad studying at Oxford. So while she is en route to England to actually go to Oxford, she gets a call from a place that she never expected, and that is from a politician, and her dream is to be in politics. So whilst attending Oxford, because there's no way she's giving up that opportunity, it's something that she's dreamed about since she was 13, she is also working for this politician and taking a literary course there. And it's just her juggling the ins and outs of dealing with basically a full-time job plus full-time school, and meeting new friends and exploring Oxford and sort of finding a bit of romance in the meantime. It's such a fun story, and it does tug at your heartstrings, and I really did enjoy it, so I would recommend this. The next book I read I also gave about a 3.5 stars on, and it's the first book in a series, and I am going to continue on with the series even though I gave it kind of a rating, because I think it's just going to get even better and better as it goes, and that is The Traitors Game by Jennifer A. Nielsen. And this book, I really enjoyed it. It's another YA fantasy, and the fact that it's called The Traitors Game is perfect because it's just full of liars. It's a really cool, interesting story about a girl who's coming back to her kingdom after 3 years in exile, and she's coming back into the thralls of her father's politics. But on her way there, she actually gets overrun by ambushers, and they are basically going to kidnap her and use her to get what they need to sort of really get their rebellion underway. And she has to help them, or else they're going to kill her closest friends, who are the people who have been helping her while she's been in exile. And it's just, she has so many different motivations in this book that, I don't know, I even found myself questioning some things here and there, but I really did enjoy it. I think that the romance in this is more of a slow burn, which I also appreciated, and Kestra, who is the main character in this, just proves how much of a strong, able female that she is, and how she can take care of herself, but she's a little liar. I really like the way that she played the game in this, and I cannot wait for book 2 and hopefully book 3, because I can just see so much more happening with this series. The next book that I read was a little bit more disappointing because, as if you've seen my previous videos talking about my new love of Viking YA, thanks to Sky in the Deep, I wanted to take a look and see what other books there were in that subgenre, and I ended up coming across Beyond a Darkened Shore by Jessica Leake. And this book I did end up giving a 2.5 to a 3 on Goodreads because it wasn't what I wanted. It was interesting. I want to give the author more credit because she did put a lot of thought into this book. She did a lot of research on mythology, and it's just, you could tell how much work and effort she put into it. But I think this book could have done with a trim down. This story is about a girl named Sierra, and she's basically the princess of her clan, and she has the ability to control people's minds basically and their bodies. And she ends up coming across during a battle a boy named Leaf who isn't susceptible to her, so that really intrigues her. But in the meantime, she takes him captive and just chaos ensues because everybody is afraid of her power, even her clansmen, and it's a difficult sort of balancing act that she has to do. But the thing about this book that I didn't really like was just how much was in it. It felt like I was just being thrown mythology. I'm really having trouble describing it because there is just so much thrown at you. Like, you have gods, you have goddesses, you have mythical creatures, you have the mind control thing that she can do, you have an ability that Leaf has, there's just so much happening in this that I think it could have been spread out more in order to be more effective. And even though there were so many obstacles that Leaf and Sierra had to actually overcome, it all just seemed to happen way too easily for them. And almost at every turn it was, oh, there's another creature that they have to defeat. Oh, hey, look at that. That's the perfect way that they can defeat them. So let's just get on with it. So I don't know. There is a second book coming out in this, and I don't know if that's going to be the end of it or not, but I don't think I'm going to continue on with this series because it's just too much. I didn't get excited about reading it. I just wanted things to happen a little bit more, with a little bit more difficulty, and yeah, I just wasn't too chuffed about it. If you want Viking YA, I would say still stick with Sky in the Deep, because this one, it fell short. Thankfully, after that, I read a book that did not fall short, but it did also bring me up to my Goodreads goal for the year, and that was Gemina by Amie Kaufman and J. Kristoff, and this is the second book in the Illuminae Files series, which I'm sure everybody has read by now, but man, this book was almost as good as Illuminae. I will say that, I don't know, I became way too attached to Katie and Ezra, and while I did enjoy the new dynamics that Hannah and Nick brought to the fold with Gemina, I really miss Katie and Ezra. But everything that happened in this book, just like Illuminae, it just blew my mind. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars on Goodreads because it didn't quite meet the expectation that Illuminae had set, but it came so close. Just like with Illuminae, if you hear synopsis of this book, you are not ready for still half of the things that happen in this book. I mean, it's so interesting, and I don't want to give it all away because it's just at every turn, like, what is going to happen next? What is happening now? And how is this going to get resolved? And it's just, oh, it was just so good. I feel like I have to read more from these two authors because I haven't read anything else by them, but, oh, this series is just finding a quick place in my heart, and it still continues on with the same type of writing style. So you have instant messages, you have surveillance documents. It's just so well done, so interesting. And then there is a part where two things are sort of happening at the same time, and the way that it's sort of laid out and written is just, it's so cool. I really enjoyed this book. And I don't want to get too much into it because I don't want to spoil anything for Illuminae for anybody who hasn't read it yet, but Gemina, definitely recommend. And the last book that I read for June, unfortunately, sort of fell flat for me as well. And it's a bummer to end the month on sort of a meh note, but I had really wanted to read this, and it really wasn't what I thought it would end up being. And that's The Guns Above by Robyn Bennis. Now, this is the first book in a series, and it just came out last year, and the next book is coming out soon. If not, it might already be available. And I probably will continue on with the series just because I can see that there's potential. But this is the author's debut book, and you can kind of tell. Again, kind of along the lines with The Darkened Shore, you can see how much effort and research she put into her writing that you just have to appreciate it. But for probably about the first half of the book, you're really just learning the ins and outs of an airship and how it works and the different roles that are played and how you need to know about the ballast and weight shifting and all of that. And I mean, if that's what you're into, then go for it. You would probably enjoy this a lot more than I did. It also gets a lot into tactical war and that sort of thing, which I always enjoy, like a great battle in a book, but this one, it seemed too technical to me, and there wasn't enough character development in it for me to really get excited about it. So I always find that for a book, for me to be really invested in a book, I need to be invested in the characters. They need to have some sort of arc that they go through. They need to be different from when they started. Things need to happen for them, and I didn't really find that that was the case. I'm not super invested in these characters yet, even though I want to be. I will also say, if you are looking for some sort of like a romance to be in this, it's not going to happen. And you get that almost immediately, because when you get introduced to our two characters, you have Josette, who is a badass woman fighting for this airship, being a captain in a difficult spot because she is a woman. Nobody really seems to respect a woman of any title in this world, which is unfortunate, but it also shows that our lead, Josette, is really strong and she tries her hardest, but a lot of the time she just gets hit with nobody giving her respect. So her, I guess, main arc in this is trying to gain the respect of her crewmates and also trying to sort of come to terms with being a woman in this type of world, even though she's been in it for a while. But then at her first interaction with the main guy in this, Burnett, yeah, it was almost immediate that I was like, yeah, this strong woman can't be with this guy, because immediately they don't really meet, but she sees him in a corner and he's just sort of sobbing to himself, basically. His lip is quivering, he's crying, he is a lazy boy who just does not want to do anything. He gets up at 10 o'clock in the morning and thinks that that's early. Like, it's just, he's a fop is what she calls him, and I feel like that is the best way to describe him. But throughout the story, they sort of get to know each other a little bit better, and you kind of learn things about him and about her, but not enough for me to really get invested. I did read the synopsis of the second book, and I feel like that's going to be sort of a similar situation, but I'm kind of hoping for one aspect of it to be a saving grace. So I think, again, I will continue with this series, but I'm not going to rush out immediately to get the second one. But like I said before, if you like more of like a tactical learning sort of situation of a book, then you might enjoy this more than I did, but it does not have enough character development to keep me super interested. Alright, so those are the books that I read this month, and if you want to keep up to date with what I am currently reading, be sure to follow me on my social media. I leave the links to everything in the description down below, so that'll be my Goodreads, my Instagram, and my Twitter, and yeah, you can sort of follow me along as I'm reading things throughout the month. Also, be sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel for more content. I put out new videos every weekend and some bonus videos here and there. And if you have read any of the books that I read this month, please leave a comment down below letting me know your thoughts. If you had varying opinions on things like The Guns Above or Gemina or anything like that, let me know. I would love to have a discussion with you about it. And currently it is boiling hot, so I did not make a tea. But until next time, keep reading.